There are two questions that I get asked a lot, and I mean a lot. Today, I'm going to answer those two questions, plus a whole lot more. Hey everybody, my name is Jimmy. Welcome to Coffee and Trains. I am just drinking some regular old store brand coffee still today, still working. If you want to tell me what kind of coffee you are drinking and have it featured just like these guys right here, you can leave a comment below and maybe it will show up on a video. Cheers, guys. The first question I get asked a lot, I'm going to jump right into right here, and that is, why don't I have one Arduino controlling a lot of different devices, like controlling signals, switches, all these different things? Well, to answer that simply, an Arduino really isn't what you think it is in terms of a full-blown computer. It is a microcontroller, and they're really designed to do a single task and do those tasks extremely well. So think of it this way, an Arduino can do a single function, and something like a Raspberry Pi or any sort of other computer CPU can do hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of different functions, and that's the big difference here. Arduinos can really only do one function. Now, you can do some crazy coding to get around some of those limitations to a degree, but overall, an Arduino is really not a multi-function device. It is a single-function device, as are other microcontrollers. Okay, back to a little bit more model railroading questions. Odio16, I hope I said that right, asked me if I'm going to order or pre-order the Kato Big Boy. Well, I already have, so hopefully I'll be getting it. I got the DCC ready version, so I will be putting in the decoder myself, and you know that I will do a video on that. Ethan Andrews asks, how long is the control rod for a tortoise switch machine, and would he be able to mount it under plywood with a 2-inch foam board, or it just need to be just plywood? Well, if we go by what Tortoise says on their website, they are optimized for 1 inch of sub-road bed, which would be your plywood, and then a 1/4 inch of road bed, which would be like your cork. So I think plywood plus 2-inch foam board would probably be a little bit much for the Tortoise switch machine, but you can always try. The control rods are little metal rods, so there's nothing really fancy about them, so you can try getting a custom one, but at least according to Tortoise, you really don't want to do more than 1.25 inch distance from the switch machine to your actual turnout. Dennis Johnson asks, how do you make trains smoke like crazy? Well, this is really a feature of larger model railroads. HO scale, of course, has smoke, and the only in-scale smoking locomotive I know of is the Broadway Limited Big Boy, or one of the big locomotives. I'm pretty sure it's the Big Boy. Is the only one I know in scale that does smoke. But the ones that really pump out the smoke are really, you're looking at like Lionel, MTH, a lot of the O gauge and up, that actually have custom features where you can see the steam coming out of the whistle, you can see the brakes and everything, and the steam coming out from the pistons, as well as the smoke coming out the stack. And those are just features of those locomotives. I'm sure there's a way to build it into it, but for the most part, those features are just built into those locomotives, and that is how you buy them. Raphael asks, what is the name of the app that I use with DCC-EX? Now, in the video that I did of constructing a DCC-EX base station a couple years ago, I use an app called Train Driver. I still use that app. It's a great app for iPhone, especially an alternative to Y-Throttle, and I really, really like it. So, but if you have Android, obviously there's Engine Driver, which is the most comprehensive app that you can use for DCC-EX or any sort of Y-Throttle protocol system. So the apps are, if you're Android, I definitely recommend Engine Driver. If you are iPhone, I can say that I use Train Driver, but Y-Throttle is a good one as well. Brandon Pacheco asks, why do you need supports in the slicer when 3D printing? And he's talking about a video where I printed an HO scale building in a Resonant 3D printer. Well, the thing about it is that a lot of times the straight across supports, let's see here. Bernard Pacheco asks, why do you need supports in the slicer when 3D printing, and why can't you just print it the way that it sits? Well, the bottom line is when you're printing, you have a lot of areas that if they weren't supported when you first started printing, they would droop or sag, or they wouldn't be able to cure properly or be able to print properly, depending on what type of printer you are using. So those supports are really just there to hold those places in place. Think about the tops of windowsills, ledges, overhangs, things like that. And when you're printing with a resin printer, you're printing upside down. So you're actually printing to hold all of these things up, and that's kind of the way you have to think about it. So supports are really there just to make sure that if we have any overhangs or ledges that aren't supported by the structure itself, that they're held in place until the print is complete, and then you can remove them. AJ Erickson asks, what do I do if my couplers keep breaking on my Bachmann trains? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. Now, personally, I haven't actually had bad experience with Bachmann couplers. I actually think they're pretty solid little couplers, but for coupler problems, you can switch to a different type of coupler. If you're an N-scale, I recommend micro trains. If you are an HO scale, KD couplers, of course, and you can actually either switch out the entire truck if you don't want to fiddle with doing any little individual replacement, or if you have body mount couplers, you can buy pre-made couplers to put in there, and there's also coupler kits that you can build if you want to save a little bit of money as well. So if your couplers keep breaking and it's a consistency on the specific brand of the coupler, then I would consider getting different couplers and installing them on there. It may save you a lot of headache in the long run. I said that I have 2 questions that I get asked all the time, and I was going to answer 2 of them. I've already answered the first one regarding Arduinos. The second one is regarding my Etsy store. Now, my Etsy store has been dormant for quite a while. I actually can't remember the last time that I sold a print, and that's really been because I've been so busy that I could not commit to making prints, so I didn't put anything up for sale because it may take a while for those to get out to consumers. Well, I came across a company that can do 3D printing and can 3D print my designs for relatively inexpensive, about the same, a little bit more than printing it myself. And it just takes a little while to get here, but I actually did a test batch with them, and I ordered 4 of my buildings, and here's a picture of one of them right here, and it came out really, really good. So I was pretty happy with it, and what I decided to do was do a small order of some buildings, a few of my buildings that I can sell on Etsy, and give this a shot. I'm going to keep continuing to increase my order if this all works out, and hopefully my Etsy store will be back up and running. The difference is that this is a lot more upfront cost, so I've got to kind of take it slow as I'm ordering all of these parts. So hopefully everything works out. I'm going to probably condense my selection of buildings down just a little bit, and I may sell some digital models that you can print yourself, but overall the Etsy store is coming back, and I'm pretty excited about it. So I'm hoping that this new way really allows me to continue the idea and the mission that I have with the Etsy store, which is to make affordable buildings that people can just place on their layouts, that they can just have, and they can just enjoy having a good looking layout. It can take a hurdle out from having a good looking layout, because a lot of people either don't have the time or don't have the skills or anything like that to build model kits, and I know that's a pretty big thing in model railroading, but a lot of people just enjoy running trains and want to have good looking buildings but may not have those skills. So having these pre-made buildings, especially in N-scale, I'm hoping to do more HO scale as well, is something that is really important to me, and I've been hoping to get back into the Etsy store, so it is coming back, and I'm really, really excited about it. So if you have any more questions that you would like to ask, you can leave them in the comments below, and I'll answer them in next month's Q&A. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.